guys, my name is Cassandra Williams from Educational Innovation 360. This is a recorded seminar because I'm going to use this webinar to just kind of inform others to tell where we are in the world, especially with K-12 education. So this is your school falling behind? First, put it in the chat. Tell me, where are you with MTSS? What is your school even tackling to integrate MTSS into the school system? Go ahead and put it in chat. Tell you a little bit about myself, 25 years in education. I support teachers in the classroom using video coaching. And what I love about our presentation is I want to make sure, one, let me move this over to see if I can I want to get captions on, because I think captions are so important. One of my colleagues said sometimes when I get super excited, I talk really fast and some people don't get to understand or even see what I said. So make sure this discussion, we can really talk about some of the things we're seeing in the schools. And then hopefully some of these data pieces I can dive into just a little bit more on how we support MTSS. Okay, so let's start with Ed Week. So one of the things that we've found is that some schools are just in the midst of rolling it out. MTSS is this massive undertaking. And so if you're just in the midst of it, you have such a long way to go. So if we know that 62% back in 2019, we're in the midst of it. And now, 2023, 36% are rolling it out. We're just only at the beginning, okay? And really looking at the districts and which students support system the districts use. And so some are taking pieces and chunks. So with MTSS, not everybody is taking all, like eating the whole elephant at once. So of course I see in the chat, yes, we're developing stages. Some of our schools are much further along than others. We would love all of our schools to be further along. That is the ultimate goal. But right now, some people are just taking pieces. So response to intervention, we did that. PBIS, sometimes we do it. Sometimes it's effective, sometimes not so much. Okay, so really thinking about how we're diving into MTSS and looking at all the components and how do we break it down into little chunks to where it could best support our school, and then we can move on to the next chunk. So really taking a look at all these components, right? What are your research-based practices? How do you involve the family and the community? Maybe you have a parent university that is popping up and parents really want to know what's going on in school and what are the curriculum, how can they support their students, right? Really thinking of all the components. The collaborative and shared leadership, no big I. Leadership is working with the coach, is working with the teachers, working with the families to come up with these wonderful solutions. How are we solving these problems that we see and making effective decisions? And then looking at our multiple layers of continuum support. This will not be complete in 1 year. This is a several-year segment. And so when you think of it like that, and we're not going to kind of digest it all at once, it really helps with the support, okay? All right. Problem solving. First, looking at our goal, identifying what are our areas. What do we want students to be able to know, and what do we want them to be able to do? Right? How do we analyze the problem? And really looking at our instructional components. What is our designs? What are our systems we have in place? And what is our curriculum? And then going back to our response to intervention and how do we target all these components, okay? So one is goal identification. How do we select where to start first? Because there's so many components, right? Some people are using their data that they have and picking a focus. Others, they are doing a self-assessment. So really identifying what works best for your school, what are you willing to work on and what you're willing to do, or what's your number one pain point? Some people may start with their number one pain point and go from there, but it's really crucial that you identify what your goal is so you can build together as a team. being able to analyze our goals and look at evidence-based practices and assess some of the things that we're working on has been really crucial in setting a norm. So we all are on the same page when it comes to growth and what are some areas of expertise we need to work on. When we're talking about a school-wide focus, we want to get the meat and potatoes, right? High action, high impact, meeting the members of the school, being on the same page, creating norms, really understanding how we can stay, and our number one priority is that upper right quadrant. Now, this is, I think, Wichita schools, and they have done a phenomenal job because they've been working at this for a while now. So really taking the superintendent, taking the schools, and finding out how does this identify with our mission of our school? What can we do to not only analyze our, are we developing at this stage? What are our metrics to show success, right? What does success look like for us? And then have we reached our success metrics that we set in at the beginning? I thought this was so crucial. And this data that they have collected is phenomenal because it really gives people a guideline and a draft to where you can take this when it comes to instructional design, okay? We're thinking about the steps. We don't want to take big leaps, right? Because we can literally run with this, and one person can run with this. But when it comes to really taking many pieces, we have to understand what is the balance, what is the group dynamic, what are some exemplars that we can identify, and then how are we as educators explicit in what we want to see. So really looking at all the components, what are the gaps, what are our expectations, and where do we begin, I think is crucial, okay? Now, this is what we've seen all the time. This is Pasadena. They did a good job with our tier system, but really thinking about, okay, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. But Mike Mattis developed the inverted pyramid. And what he has been able to identify is we are no longer seeing who can qualify for SPED. We are supporting each individual student in their entity. So I'm not going to play the video, but the video is very good. And I encourage you to watch the video when he talks about how do we focus on individual students, and all students will not get to this point, but how do we strengthen our tier 1 and our interventions to make sure that we can support all students in the school building.
So to change the thinking, we inverted the pyramid. We said, you know what? Really, a system of interventions is about focus.
Gotta love it. So here is the tiered system. You know, universal screening, thinking about what are all our components that we use to screen our students to see where they are in this map, you know, who gets access to tier 2 and, you know, who gets access to tier 3. And then really identifying what does our tier 2 look like and how do we best support them in tier 3. Okay, now here are the components. Now there's so many components, I say, but what EI 360 does very well are these major components, right? We understand professional development. When teachers get exactly what they need, they provide their students with best practices. When we understand our tier system and everybody is on board, then everybody, focuses on tier 1 to really support students in their educational goals. Educational program is a part of the professional development. We tend to focus on one content area, but for us at EI 360, we focus on literacy. Literacy is our means to movement. So we look at the data in literacy and we kind of ask ourselves, where is the evidence of where our students are performing? And then how do we move from there, okay? And we do that by looking at all of our systems that are in play and collaborating. And then, of course, social emotional learning, which is so prevalent right now. And what many people do is say, we have our social emotional curriculum, check. Put it in the chat. Tell me what SEL curriculum do you have out there? There's so many SELs. And then one of my go-tos are CASEL. CASEL is the go-to for all social emotional learning. And it really helps us dive into, are we hitting this component or are we not? Okay. And where's this component found in our school? Not only the curriculum, but throughout our school. Okay. All right. And so one of the things that we pride ourselves at EI360 is professional development. Like I said, we have video coaching to where we support teachers in the classroom. And so we can identify what are the needs of teachers in the building, and are they meeting our tier 1 needs? Are they pulling out for tier 2? What do their groups look like? Even looking at what do PLCs look like? And so really thinking about how we can reinforce some of the skills that we're teaching, some of the goals that we have for MTSS in the classroom to make sure there's transparency amongst all learners. One thing also that we do is we look at retention, resources. Do the teachers have the resources they need? Reading scores. Everything is customizable, our goals for each individual teacher. And the professional development is based on what we see in the video. So if we identify, wow, a lot of teachers, although they're doing social emotional programming in the classroom, one of the things we need to do is provide supports and scaffolds and things in this area. And so that's what the whole school professional development is about, okay? And of course, we give professional growth points because teachers are doing ongoing professional development. Okay. Last but not least, raise efficacy, make sure everybody's on the same page. Everybody gets access to learning. Everybody gets access to our goals, our mission, and we all are seeing the same database and are moving in the same direction. Okay. This is data based on NWEA scores and based on reading, but sometimes areas of growth may be math. So in different areas, it depends on what your school wants to focus on. There's an area you can do math, you can do reading. Some schools may want to do social sciences. It just really depends on what data do you have and what area of expertise, and what's our data. How do we know that we've made success? Okay. And typically at EI360, we do reading. Okay. And so here is the meat and potato, is the SEL, really looking at the components, the 5 components, and identifying where are our standards? Where are our indicators? And as you see, our indicators are usually throughout the building and not just in the programs. So being able to look at our classrooms and identify, what are the ethical and social factors that are happening in the classroom? Right? What is the teacher's demeanor when she walks in the room? And all that plays a role. Is the teacher meeting the students at the door? Is the teacher happy? Does she show joy? Is she engaging? What are our lessons? And all of these pieces play a role. And each category, of course, has their standards and expertise on which we want to see all of our students. Okay. Now, I think this is the biggest piece of MTSS, is really diving into all of our resources and identifying all the pieces that we have. Because what we notice is we have all these components, yet and still we struggle on listing them. We struggle on systematic approach. And we also struggle on like levels of support. And so what this school did, this I think was LAUSD, they did a phenomenal job in identifying what are their interventions and supports that are academic. Because this not only helps the teacher, but it helps external factors like the Hope Center to identify what we are doing at the school. And I thought this was so crucial. So they identify what are our screening tools that we have, and then what's missing. What are our screening tools that we may need to get? And then everybody's on the same page, but being able to hyperlink these documents so we all know and all in cahoots on what is happening at our school. And once we get all the components, we can kind of dissect and see, okay, this tier, we're doing this for phonics, we're doing letters, we're doing Orton Gilliam, we're doing Hegarty, right? We can take these pieces and we can think, okay, how are these pieces affecting the whole school? And then last but not least, we can take our flow chart and say, okay, what is our process for each of the components so we all could be successful and we all can help our students? Okay. One of the things I see as a major pain point at our schools are connected systems. Of course, we have our LMS, right? Our LMS does a wonderful job with tracking data, with attendance, with like hey, student behaviors, but one thing that we struggle with, there are two systems that I know that's out there. If you know another one, definitely put in the chat. Panoramic Survey, they do a really good job in like comparing data and bringing data together. But one of the biggest ones I thought really phenomenal on how they effectively integrate the data. Branching Minds does a phenomenal job with really integrating systems, because you don't have to actually put things in. Things are automatically put in the spaces where they are. And what makes this phenomenal is, like, now we're talking the same language. Now we know what this child has done in reading. And so me at in therapy, or me at tier 2, we're working on that, but I can kind of see what the student is working on and how they are best supporting it. And that's so funny. I have it under the title, Branching Minds, and I didn't even see it, but whatever. So really thinking about how we collaborate on data. And last but not least, 𝐸dweek does a phenomenal job with identifying like the benefits. I think we are only seeing now a couple of schools develop guides on MTSS, which it kind of makes me sad, because our MTSS could be so like informative. It could be thriving if we just get our systems in place, if we just start. But if we had a state effort in the state of Indiana with really taking the initiative with developing guide, it will give some people a blueprint. Right now, we're using other states' blueprint for success, like Mississippi, and I know Los Angeles. Yep, Los Angeles has one. And so there are a couple of states that are really taking the initiative, but we are still trying to kind of, hopefully we get something done soon. But really thinking about what are the benefits, right? Making data decisions is number one. Thinking of how we identify all of our students and make sure nobody falls through the crack, how we supporting the whole child, how we envisioning the parents and collaborating with the parents to get their student on the right track. And then some of the challenges. Now, I'm not going to leave here without saying there are some challenges, and much of the challenges lie in the implementation and then fidelity, right? We see how successful this could be, but I think we're all doing it our own way. That's what makes it a challenge. And so we see the blueprint, and we see some people that are successful, but we don't realize, oh, they're successful because their PBIS structure is very efficient. Oh, they're successful because their parent group is very supportive, right? So we don't know all the components. We see that some people are successful, but I think the fidelity piece matters, the transparency. And then the buy-in and the faculty, and making sure everybody's on make sure everybody's on board, and then the financing that comes with this, right? And finding the time and interventions, access, and if we realize that, oh, we're missing this program or this piece, that we need to spend money on it. So really thinking about the whole piece and how do we best support our students, but there are challenges. So like I said, this was just a brief dive into what MTSS could be, how great it is, and how I think you should just start, even if your state doesn't have a guide.